Hello, this is Marlene Dinarius here from MIFA, Tota Musica, a project of Latinum, the Latinum Institute. In this case, the lost language of music made easy. And in this video, I'm going to introduce you to what I think is a very useful book by A.F. Kollmann, written towards the very end of the 18th century. There are a great many books on Thoroughbass, and all of these books say that this is about teaching you Thoroughbass and composition. But there are very few books that tell you how to go about making the move, I suppose, from your knowledge of Thoroughbass to being able to compose. But this short work by A.F. Kollmann helps tremendously. It's called An Introduction to the Art of Preluding and Extemporizing in 6 lessons for the harpsichord or harp, or could be organ. Respectfully dedicated to Miss Cranford by A.F. Kollmann, organist of His Majesty's German Chapel, St. James's. That chapel is still in existence. It was called the Queen's Chapel. Now, of course, it is called the King's Chapel and will be called the King's Chapel for the foreseeable future. So what I'm going to do is read the preface to you, because this is highly instructive and pretty much summarizes many things that I think are absent in modern music education. But if you want to become a musician, then unless you are learning jazz or you are a popular musician, so-called, you probably don't know how to do the things that Kollmann thinks you should know how to do if you want to call yourself a musician. The science of music very much resembles a language, and a person who can only play notes or memory, but not out of his own fancy or invention, may be compared to one who can read a language and repeat some parts of it, but who cannot converse in it. One principal object, therefore, in the study of music should be to obtain the capacity to express voluntary thoughts, either before and between other pieces of regular composition, or without regard to any musical piece. But as the art of preluding and extemporizing with judgment requires, besides other qualities, a knowledge which cannot be obtained in a short time, and which many performers never obtain at all, it follows that without a certain acquaintance with some harmonious passages, which may be of the same use in learning musical dialogues as are in acquiring the knowledge of a language, all beginners and many players are under the disagreeable necessity either not to encourage their own fancy at all, or to flourish up and down without any meaning and effect. And as it is impossible for a teacher of music to write down for every scholar a sufficient number of examples to answer the purpose in question, particularly where schools are attended, the author has, in the following pages, attempted a collection of the said kind, on which he thinks it expedient to make the following previous observations. The work in general is intended to furnish players with different capacities, with subjects for preluding or extemporizing, and thereby to render them acquainted with those elements of music on which they are constructed, and with the method by which they may proceed from the same to some regular inventions of their own. Now, what I'm going to say here is that this book, from what I can see, works extremely well with Lamper's Introduction to Thoroughbass. Frederick Lamper, who wrote a very useful, practical treatise on how to learn Thoroughbass. And I've been using Lamper's exercises myself, and I've started using Coleman's exercises, and I'm finding them to be extremely useful. What is in common in all of these books on Thoroughbass is the following. And if you look also at the Introduction to Thoroughbass by Artemis Nixon Johnson, which is a 19th century book, but following earlier traditions, I also think this is an extremely useful book on Thoroughbass to combine with Lamper and with Coleman. Then I think that you will be able to make progress. Certainly I am making progress. What is absolutely necessary, and there's no two ways about it, is regular practicing of the scales and also learning the Neapolitan solfeggio, which can be accomplished by playing the fully modulated scales, and then learning the Thoroughbass for each scale and the various patterns of each chord in each scale, and then following various exercises for this, either in Coleman or in Lamper or in Johnson. But it is extremely important to just repeatedly play these chords over and over again until you require automaticity with the chords. And there are a great many chords. 3 positions of each chord in the simple common chord, in each key, minor and major. So that's enough to keep you busy for quite some time. But Coleman gives you a way to start to learn how to improvise right from the beginning in very simple ways. And indeed, so does Lamper as well. And Lamper teaches how to connect chords together with a pivot note, which is also very useful. So I would highly recommend Lamper because he starts off with the cadences in all of the keys. And once you know the cadences automatically, then this makes it a lot easier if you wish to just play music voluntarily out of your head. And neither or none of these books have a large amount of musical theory as such. They are practical. So the goal is to get you to understand how things work and to give you the skill to be able to play. So in some senses, it's very much like the way a popular musician learns, but it's more structured. And I think these 3 texts, after having looked at many, many books on Thoroughbass, for me anyway, they work, and I'm using them as the primary texts for teaching myself this skill. I hope you find it useful. So to reiterate, Coleman is the text we have here, and Lamper, L-A-M-P-E, John Frederick Lamper, and also Artemis Nixon Johnson, who has 2 books on Thoroughbass. The one you want is the one on the Pestalozzian method, inductive Thoroughbass, but both of them are good. I think one of them has got a slightly different title, talks about harmony, but it's still teaching you Thoroughbass. Bye for now.